Good morning. This is Mr. Bradley, and today I'm going to talk to you about how you can use Microsoft Excel to graph and analyze data. Um, what you see on the screen is a problem from the Giancoli physics book that we use in honors physics. Um, and I picked this problem mainly because it has a simple set of data, um, and we could use that set of data to create a graph of position versus time. And then from that graph, we could find some things. I want to show you some of the analysis tools that we can use on Microsoft Excel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Microsoft Excel. And when I open up Microsoft Excel, I went ahead and created two columns for the position time data. I want to take that position time data, or I'm sorry, I want to take the position time data that I had from Microsoft Excel, from the Giancoli physics book, and I want to enter that data in this spreadsheet under the columns position and time. So that's going to take me a moment. I'm going to pause the video while I do that. Okay, welcome back. So you can see now that I have this column or this data set over here typed into Microsoft Excel, pretty much the exact same data that I had over here. So one thing I always like to do before I create any graphs is just to take a quick look at the data to make sure I understand what I'm looking at. So you can see that I've got this data that shows as time goes by from 0 to 6 seconds that this race car is at different positions at all those different times. You know, at 6 seconds after the beginning, the race car is at 87.16 meters from its original position. Take note here that the times do not increase the same. It looks like they go up by about 0.25 seconds up to about 1 second, and then after that it increases by half a second. It's always a good idea to make sure you just take a look at the data to see if it seems evenly spaced or not. Okay, so now I'm ready to go ahead and make a graph. So what I'm going to do is go up here to the menu bar on the top of Microsoft Excel, and I'm going to choose Insert, and I want to choose one of these charts. Now this is a really important thing. Most people think that we're creating a line graph because they end up having lines on them, but a line graph evenly spaces out your X data regardless of the actual spacing that the data has, and we don't want to do that. So what we choose is a scatter. What that does is allows us to just plot the points as is. So what I do is I click on a cell outside of the data set, and then I choose the scatter function. And it's always a good idea to have like a smooth lines and markers type of thing. So I'm going to choose that particular one, and you can see now I just get a blank window. There's no data here yet being graphed. Up here in this particular menu, I can go under the data box and select data, and this window pops up. So this is kind of where all the magic happens. What I'm going to do is select Add Series, and you can see that it's going to allow me to name the series. Well, this is a good place to title the graph, so I'm going to call this Race Car Position Over Time. Okay. And then you see these two boxes down below. This one says Series X values and Series Y values. This is where I'm actually going to select the data that I'm going to graph. This button right here on the edge of the text window, if I click on that button, you can see this minimizes the whole window. But then what I can do is I can take my mouse and I can actually select the data that I want to graph. And then now you can see that that data is represented here in that text box. If I then select this button on the right side of the window, I've now basically, you can see that I put those, those times are going to be on the x-axis when I graph the rest. I'm going to do the same thing on the y-axis. So when I click on that window and I go over here to position, it now will use that data. And hey, sure enough, now there's all my data that I had for this race car. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and just click OK in this window. And I'm not going to graph any more data here, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now, I got to tell you, if I had another race car and I had its positions, I could also add that data to this graph, which would be nice because then I would have two graphs displayed on the same screen. We'll have situations where we do that in this class. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and I now have my graph to look at. So, you know, um, I want to go ahead and just drag this whole window and maybe make it a little bit bigger. I don't need this little legend because I already know what I'm looking at, so I'm going to delete that. And now the only problem is I don't have any like data labels or anything like that. I need to add all that stuff. So where I do that is up on top when I go to layout, and I can put in axis titles, you know, and I can just type in this is time. Always put the unit in there. That's in seconds. I'm going to, sorry, axis titles, vertical axis. You can do this kind of however you want. I kind of like to have a rotated one. That looks kind of slick. So this is going to be position Y. I'm sorry, in meters. Okay. So now I've basically created a graph of position over time. I don't know. There's one thing here that I think looks a little strange, and that's that I don't have any vertical grid. So I'm going to go ahead and add a major grid line there too on the vertical axis. That makes it look a little bit more official. But then this is nice too, because if I needed to go and try to pick some points out in here, I certainly could. I want you to notice some of the possibilities of things you can do up here. One of them is trend line, which is pretty important. If I wanted to see what the trend line of this was, I could choose linear trend line and it would fit there. That's not really, doesn't really show the actual trend, so that's not a good choice. I'm going to go ahead and remove that trend line. And in fact, I want to go down here to more trend line options. And then in this situation, I can really pick a lot of things. Well, I'm going to tell you that right now I know that a polynomial would fit this really well. Basically we're looking at a position time graph that shows acceleration, and the equations that describe that are polynomial equations. So I'm going to go ahead and choose polynomial, and then I'm going to display the equation on the chart, and I'm going to display the r² value on the chart. When I hit close, then I get that equation with an r² value on there. Now you can probably notice that the r² value is 1. Well, what that means is that's a perfect fit. And, frankly, what that also means is that they made up some data here that would fit trend line really well. But what I really like about this is that now this equation will describe to me the position of the object at any time if I put time in for x. It shows that there actually is some initial position when time is equal to 0, which we know isn't true. That's because this isn't a perfect data set, but it's pretty darn close. So anyway, you can see that with a pretty quick method, I can graph data using Microsoft Excel and get a graph for analysis really nicely. So anyway, we will be doing this over the course of the year in this class, and I hope you found this useful in terms of adding to your skills for graphing with Microsoft Excel. Have a great day.